We'll move ahead in our fifth module, which is storage and databases. Okay, so I'll try to make the remaining modules and topics as interesting as possible, because I know many of you would have done heavy lunch and would be feeling sleepy. Okay, so here goes the learning objectives for this. So in storage and databases, definitely for databases, we would be going through the services which are for databases, like for the RDS service, DynamoDB, right? So these are the two key services which we would be going through. And then for storage options, we'll be going through some options like S3, EBS, EFS. So these options we'll be exploring in this module. Okay. Okay, so very first thing, the very first option which we get from AWS is an instance store. Okay, so now what we are trying to do is we are trying to understand, we have an EC2 server, right? So whenever we have server, for example, that server could be as simple as a laptop which you have, right? So it has got a hard disk attached to it, right? There is an inbuilt hard disk which is there, right, in which you can store your files, you can install any application, database engine, whatever you want to install, and also you can store files, right? Similarly, when it comes to cloud, you have EC2 instance, right? So with EC2 instance, you can attach different types of storage devices, right? The very first type which we are looking at is instance store. Okay, it's a block level storage. Okay, so what is a block level storage? A block level storage, so basically there are two types of storage available types. Okay, so one is block level and another one is object storage. Okay, so in block level store, we can do both the things. We can store our files, okay, video files, PDFs, any type of file we can store, or even if you want to install anything, for example, a database engine you want to install, a web server you want to install, you can install it in a block level type of storage. But in object type of storage, you cannot install an application. Okay, you can store your documents, files, everything, but in block level storage you cannot install. So coming back to instance store, instance store provides a temporary block level storage, right? So block level storage we have understood. Let's try to understand why there is an emphasis on this word temporary. So what it means is, if we look at the last line on this slide, if the instance is stopped or terminated, you would lose all the data which is present inside that instance store. So that is why in the very first line there is a strong emphasis on the word temporary. Okay, so there is only one scenario, which is a reboot. So if you are doing a reboot on your EC2 instance, that in situation the data is kept as is. Okay, so you are able to retain the data, but if you stop the instance or you terminate it, in these two situations you would lose all the data. Okay, so that is why temporary. So instant store, if you look at just what exactly it is, just revisiting. So it's a disk storage that is physically attached to a host computer for an EC2 instance. Okay, and therefore since it is attached to an EC2 instance, it is very much getting affected by whether you are starting an instance, you are rebooting, or stopping, or terminating. Okay, so this is the very first type instance store which is available to us for storing things or installing any web server or database engine or whatever application on a storage device on EC2. Okay. Then we look at EBS. It stands for elastic block store. Okay, again it's a block level storage, so we would be able to do both the things. We can install applications, we can store files, both the things we can do, right? But it is not temporary. Okay, if you stop an EC2 instance, then also all the data can remain as is inside the EBS volume. Okay, elastic block store. Okay, only thing is, when we are terminating an EC2 instance, there we have an option. Okay, so while we are launching an EC2 instance, at that time we can tell AWS that whenever I am terminating an AWS EC2 instance, what should be the treatment for my EBS. So there are both these options possible. I can say remove all the data which is present on EBS, or I can even say don't remove the data. Consider my EBS, leave my EBS as is, even if the EC2 instance is terminated. So both these options are available to me. So that is why this is not a temporary storage. It's a more of a permanent storage. Okay. Then in the same ABS thing, there is a concept of taking snapshots, right? So a snapshot is nothing but it's a backup which we want to take, right? So we want to backup if there is any data which we have stored, right? So there could be some frequency that every day you want to backup, right? It depends on your organization or the use case for which you are building this solution, right? So what happens is there is a concept of incremental backups of EBS. Okay, so the the backups of EBS are taken by creating a snapshot, right? So a snapshot is a very AWS specific term. So a snapshot is nothing but a incremental backup which we are taking of our EBS volume. Okay, so just by this diagram it will be clear. So this is day one. Okay, so this two disks written one and one, these signify that this was the data. So day one I have taken the backup, so all the data which was there on day one, which it has come as a snapshot. On day two, which when I take, then only the data which has changed. So let's say I've added 2, that's the only thing which gets copied. So it's an incremental backup, it's an incremental snapshot which is being which happens, right? So it doesn't copy all the data again. It intelligently checks what is the incremental data which has happened as compared to the last time the backup was taken, and then copies only that data. So for example, on day 3, so this example is where I have said that I want to take a backup or I want to take a snapshot of my EBS on a daily basis. So on a daily basis, it is just checking what is the incremental change and it is copying it. Okay. Okay, so definitely it is much better than the full backup, right? So in full backup, everything gets copied, right? And definitely there is no point in every day that whatever data was copied on day one, I remove it and I again take a copy. So there is no point of doing that, right? So it's an incremental way it happens, which is a better way of doing, right? Then again, we are again touching base on this concept of object storage, which we just discussed, that there are 2 types of storage on AWS: block and object. Block is something I explained. We can keep files, we can also install applications, right? In object storage, we can keep objects. These objects are nothing but our files. It could be image, video, text, document, or any type, right? But we cannot install an application inside on a object storage type of service. Okay. When we are talking about object storage, whatever objects we have, that objects can definitely, they have the data. So I have an image, it has data, which is my image. Okay, then it can have certain metadata associated with it. Metadata is nothing but data about data. So it could be like I can create my own metadata also. If some custom metadata I want to create, like property of the let's say I am storing profile pictures, right? So I can have a metadata, custom metadata, let's say customer underscore name, and I can put the name of the customer in that, right? So that kind of metadata I can create, right? So there is some metadata which automatically gets created, which could be like system. It is the same thing which happens on our file systems, right? So you are creating a file on your hard disk, right? So there is some metadata which is already present over there, right? Like when the file was created, who was the author, all those things. So that metadata is something which is system generated. So on AWS we can have metadata which we also can create, right, and associate with the objects, right? And of course, the key signifies that we can encrypt this files also, right? So the very object storage on AWS which is available to us is the S3. So S3 is one of the most famous services and one of the most very initial, in the initial days when AWS was started. This is one of the initial services which was launched, right? So it's a simple storage service, right, which supports, that provides the object level storage. We just saw what is object level storage, right? We can only have files saved over there, and these files can be encrypted, and also it has the actual data and some metadata associated with it, right? So here are some quick stats. So the maximum file size for a single object on Amazon S3 could be 5 terabytes. So this is a single object which they are talking about. It's huge, right? Another concept with respect to S3 is multi-part upload capability, right? So what S3 recommends is, if you are uploading a document or an object, right? It could be file, PDF, image, or whatever. So if you are uploading it, and if it is more than 100 megabytes in size, then you should make use of multi-part upload capability. So multi-part upload capability is another feature provided by S3, in which it can break down your file in chunks. So for example, I am uploading a file from my system, local system, to S3, right? S3 is on cloud, it has to go through internet. So multi-part upload will see, so I have to utilize this feature, multi-part upload, using which I can break my, let's say, 200 MB file into small chunks, and which can make my transfer more efficient and more reliable. So that is what is recommended by S3, and it should be done if your file, if your object is more than 100 megabytes in size. Okay. So various other things also you can do on S3. S3 has got many different features, right? And every now and then, AWS keeps on adding features. We can have permissions over there, right? So we can create different permission layers over there, who can see what kind of things, right? We have versioning feature over there on S3, in which we can have different versions of the same document, right? And then we can how we can see how the objects are changing over time. So that feature is also there, right? They have lifecycle policies. So in lifecycle policy, what I can set is that if I am uploading a document, after X number of days, this document should be deleted, right? So for example, my use case is I am uploading reports over there, right? So after 30 days or after 45 days, I don't really see a use for these reports, right? And I want to reduce my cost also, because whenever I am uploading anything on S3, one of the parameters which it considers is the size of the file, the size which it has taken on S3, right? So I can have these lifecycle policies. I can tell S3, it's a simple configuration, that after X number of days, my files should be deleted. So these are 3 or 4 different features. Apart from that, also there are many features which S3 offers. Definitely, you can go through those. But from this certification perspective, these are the important things which one should know about S3, right? Another key thing which one should know about S3 is the storage classes, which we will be exploring now. So whenever we are uploading any object on S3, right? So on S3, we can tell S3 that what should be, how the object should be. While I'm saying object, I'm referring to any file which I'm uploading. Okay. So I can tell S3 how S3 should categorize, or how the object should be, or the file should be stored on S3, and how the S3 should treat it. Okay. Why this is important? Because depending on these parameters, the cost of storage and cost of retrieval of these files varies, right? So what uh, uh, S3 has done is, what AWS done is, they have created different storage classes, right, with different options, different features, so that basis our requirement, our use case, we can pick and choose, so that we can save our cost, right? So we can pick a specific one from a range of storage classes to select our to fit our specific business needs and cost, right? So let's see what these storage classes are. Okay. So this is the first storage class, S3 standard. Okay. So this is the by default storage class. If you are uploading a object or a file on S3, this is the by default which is selected. What it means is, this is the costliest one, by the way, as compared to otherwise S3 is not that costly, but as compared to other storage classes, this is the costliest one. So what are the features of this storage class? Okay. So this is designed for frequently accessed data, stores data in a minimum of 3 availability zones. Okay. So this is by default, this is the behavior of this storage class. So we will just see what it means. So designed for frequently accessed data, right? So when we are accessing any data very frequently, right? So for example, I have my profile picture, let's say on LinkedIn, right? So when I'm logging into LinkedIn, my profile picture is shown. When I am going through different, the posts and everything, one page, from one page to another page, still my photograph is being shown over there, right? So this is one scenario where my profile picture is being accessed very frequently, right? right? So in such a frequently accessed data, the response time should be very fast. The latency should be very less, right? So if that is the use case, then yes, S3 standard. Another important parameter which has to be considered is how the data is being stored, right? So the parameter over there is durability, right? So if I store a file on S3, how likely it is that if I come back after 1 year, the file will be there only. So this is meant by durability, right? So in when we are choosing S3 standard storage class, S3 standard class, what it does is it stores my data on minimum 3 different availability zones, right? And let's recall, availability zone is inside a region, right? And availability zone is a specific physical data center, right? So even if in a worst case scenario, in an unfortunate event, one availability goes down, the same file will be available in another availability zone, right? So the durability is increased a lot. Even if I come after 1 year, in an unfortunate event during that year, some availability zone went down, it was flooded or something, but still I'll be able to get my file, right? So this provides highest durability, and it is suited for scenarios where you cannot afford to lose any data. Okay, and you also want to access the data very frequently. So that is the storage class S3 standard, and definitely you have to pay slightly more as compared to others, right? So with that deep understanding, we will just quickly go through the others and we will just see the differences. Now there is S3 standard infrequent access. So here also it is storing in all 3 availability zones, but the response time is slightly more. So it is saying it is ideal for infrequently accessed data. Okay, so that is what it is good for. Then we have S3 one zone infrequent access. Okay, now here they are changing how it is stored in how many different availability zones. So I was giving an example that I have to store a report, right? So I have created an Excel report from my database. My main data is sitting in my database, right? I have just created an Excel report, right? So this report I save on S3, right? Can I recreate this data? Yes, because the main data is stored in database, my database, right? So I can use this storage class S3 one zone infrequent access, so that my cost which I'm paying, the storage price is even lesser, right? Now the caveat over here is that it is the S3 is going to store my file only in one availability zone, right? So the chances of my file being not durable is higher, but I can take that risk because my use case is like that, right? I can recreate the same data. So it depends on what is the use case. How basis the use case, we can select any specific storage class, right? And then we can have different cost points for ourselves, right? In continuation to that, there is S3 intelligent tiering. So intelligent tiering means I don't know what would be my patterns, right? How frequently I am going to access, right? So if those are the unknowns that you don't know, then you can opt for this kind of storage class, right? Definitely there is slight small amount of fees which one has to pay for monitoring each object, because S3 has to monitor the patterns for each object and figure out which is the right storage class, right? So it will keep monitoring and observing how frequently data is being accessed, right? So basis that it will take your file or object to appropriate storage class, right? So there is a small fee involved over there. Okay, then last 3 storage classes, or rather these are actual services as well, which are S3 Glacier and S3 Glacier Deep Archive, right? So these are, for data archiving perspectives, right? So in our organizations, we have, before cloud, we have seen that, we have 6-year-old data, 7-year-old data, 8-year-old data, right? So we are just dumping it on tape drives and whatnot, and we are keeping it somewhere safe, right? So if that is the use case, you are archiving your data, right? After, let's say, your compliance, you are in a health insurance type of a setup which says after 7 years you can archive the data, right? You cannot delete it, you can archive it, right? So you can choose any of these options, right? So but definitely the retrieval time is something which varies in between these choices, right? So in S3 Glacier you can retrieve your objects within minutes to hours. Okay, it's the retrieval time, the time which it takes from Glacier to be available to you for reading. right? So that is from few minutes to hours. That is one key thing which we need to remember. And even if we can go for deep archive, in which the retrieval time goes till 12 hours, right? So this is even less costlier as compared to Glacier, right? So both these options are available when it comes to archival. And then, depending on the use case, depending on what you want to do, how fast the data should be available from your archives, these from these two options we can choose. Okay. So this is AWS S3. Okay. So moving forward, with respect to other storage options, we have Elastic File Store. Okay. So what is an Elastic File Store? Elastic File Store, as the word suggests, elastic. It's a scalable file system used with AWS Cloud Services. Okay. So what so let's first see the features, and then we will try to understand it better by comparing it with EBS, because this is also a block level storage. We can store files, we can install applications as well. Okay. So what the key point which is being made over here is, we can add and remove files, and accordingly the size of EFS grows and shrinks. Okay. And it can scale on demand to petabytes without disturbing applications, right? So it's elastic in nature, right? So let's compare it with EBS. Then we will be better able to understand the differences between what was EBS, right, we just studied, and then what is EFS, right? So very first point, EBS is something which is available to us in a single availability zone. We have an EBS volume. We can attach that EBS volume to a specific EC2 instance, right? Whereas EFS is a regional service. Data is copied across multiple availability zones to make it more durable, right? And the most important thing is, we can attach a EBS volume to a single EC2 instance, and therefore that EC2 instance and that EBS volume, they must remain in the same availability zone. But with EFS, we can attach EFS to multiple different EC2 instances, right? So that is the key difference between EBS and EFS. Both are block storage. Okay. But with EBS, when we are provisioning a EBS volume, we have to tell upfront that I wanted 20 GB of EBS, I want a 50 GB of EBS, right? And when my data reaches 50 GBs, then I have to manually go and add more EBS volume. But with EFS, no. EFS, we just attach an EFS volume to it, and then it will keep growing and shrinking as our data keeps growing and shrinking. So that is one point. Second point is, EFS can be attached to multiple EC2 servers, but EBS can be attached to a single EC2 server. Okay, so these are the differences between Elastic File Store and EBS. Okay. So this completes our storage options available. We will move in the storage module itself. We will now move to the databases services choices which are available to us. Okay. So in databases, again, we'll quickly for 30 seconds just revise what's it's a concept alert. So relational database, most of us are aware that a relational database, in a relational database, data is stored in the form of tables, rows, and columns, right? So that is how the table database data is stored. And then most of the times, we are using this structured query language SQL to query the data and get the data back, right? So these are the typical relational databases. Why relational? Because we have strong relationships between data, right? So that is why the term relational databases, right? So in relational databases, what are the choices available to us? So we have this Amazon Relational Database Service, Amazon RDS, right? So what it is? It is a managed service. Again, we are hearing the same phrase, managed service. Okay. Why it is a managed service? Let's see, it's written in bold. It automates tasks such as hardware provisioning, database backup, patching, and backups, right? So if you are coming from a database administration background, or if you have seen how these things work, right? Database backups, making sure the patches and everything is up to date for your database. There is good amount of maintenance which is required to be done on databases, right? All this heavy work is taken care by AWS. Okay, so that is why it becomes a managed service. Okay, so we launch a relational database. Okay, we will see what kind of databases we can launch without worrying about these things. We need not, we just have to tell what is the frequency of our backups. RDS managed service is going to take those backups. We need not to worry about latest security patches or whatever upgrades. We need not to worry about any database setup or any maintenance activity which is required. That all is the headache of AWS. So that is why it's a managed service, right? It's a service that enables us to run relational databases in AWS cloud. Okay, another important point which we need to notice with respect to encryption. So their RDS database engine offers encryption at rest meaning when the data is stored inside database, at that time we can have our data encrypted, and also when it is in transit, right? So I have fired a query and I'm fetching the data, so at that time also the data is encrypted. So both these options are there, we can avail these features, right? So with this understanding, let's see what are the different options available. As of now, it supports 6 databases engines. Okay, so Microsoft SQL Server we are aware about. We can launch a Microsoft SQL Server, right? We can launch Oracle database, we can launch MariaDB, we can launch MySQL, we can launch a PostgreSQL. Okay, and then of course there is a new database engine which is AWS proprietary, which is Amazon Aurora. Okay, so these are the 6 different flavors of database engines which are available to us, right? And depending on our requirement, what we as architects we are deciding, whatever we want to, we can launch any of these database engine as a relational database managed service. Okay, so this is about relational database service. Now let's move to another concept, which is NoSQL databases, which are like non-relational databases, right? So this term has been very popular over the internet in different forums. Many organizations and teams are using NoSQL databases, right? So NoSQL databases are the databases where we are not storing or we are not organizing data as rows or columns, but the representation of the data is very different, right? Not only the representation, but the complete philosophy, how or the design of how are you going to design your tables, right? And everything is very different when it comes to NoSQL databases, right? So we have 4 different types of NoSQL databases: key value store, document store, column oriented database, and graph database, right? So in each of these categories there is a specific AWS service corresponding to it. Okay, so if we move ahead, we have Amazon DB. It's a key value kind of a database. Okay, so on the right hand side, if you can see the diagram, so key value means there is a key and there is a value. So there's a simple meaning of a key value database, right? Amazon DB is in a lot of popularity nowadays because it promises that it has single digit millisecond performance at any scale. So when I say performance, what I mean is the ability to read and write data, right? So that's what is meant by performance for a database, right? So just again touching base again the structure. So you can see key value, here is a key and there is a value. And the most important thing to note over here is unlike the relational databases, right, we can have different types of properties as values, right? So for example, here we have 2 properties, name and address, right, and favorite drink. But for the second key value pair, we have name, address, and birthday, which is allowed. Okay, we don't have this favorite drink over here, right? So this is the way NoSQL databases are created. That's the philosophy of NoSQL databases, that we can have very flexible structures, right? And this is a NoSQL database. Now, just coming back to DynamoDB, DynamoDB, again, it's serverless. We not bothered about what kind of server it is running, how it is scaling, how it is scaling up, scaling down. We need not to provision, we not to manage any servers. It's completely serverless technology which is being offered to us from AWS, right? It grows and shrinks with the amount of data, with the demand which it is getting, right, to maintain consistent performance. So these are the 2 or 3 different key points of Amazon DynamoDB. Okay, then we move to a very different category of databases. Okay, so these are like data warehousing kind of databases, right? So Amazon Redshift is comes into that category. Okay, so these databases are slightly designed and architected differently as compared to relational databases, right? These are designed from the perspective of you want to do good amount of analytics, or you will be doing lot of analytics, running different complex queries, and figuring out what associations and everything is present in the database, right? You want to create your data warehouses, right? So all those things. So for those purposes, Amazon Redshift is a service which can be used for big data analytics, right? It offers the capability to collect data from many sources, and it can help you to understand the relationships and trends which are there in the data. So from that perspective, the key service which is being offered from AWS is Amazon Redshift. Okay. Then the last item when it comes to storage, this module is a very important service from AWS, which is a database migration service, right? So it's a very great service which can help us to migrate data from one type of database to another type of database. So with different use cases we can it can be supported. So from a same database, so I have MySQL database, lower version, different version, I want to migrate it to MySQL of a different version, I can do that. I want to migrate data from
Ankit,
MySQL to hello.
Ankit, just for a minute, the screen share is little odd. The slides are not visible, it seems.
Okay. So is it is lagging behind, or it's not at all visible, Priya?
No, the structure is a little bit different. It became down or so.
Okay, let me again do that. I think it stopped. Sharing was stopped somehow.
Yeah. Okay, it's good now.
Okay, because on my machine, it's not giving me that window which it gives, right? When I share my screen, it tells me that your screen is shared, so it doesn't tell me that. Which screen you are able to see, Priyadarshan?
Now we are seeing the slides page, so we are good to go.
Okay, which one? Is it DMS service which you are saying?
DMS, yes, AWS DMS.
Okay, yep. Yeah, please tell me if there is some issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one more quick thing is, you can quickly, once we finish with the slides, quickly just show the S3 service on the AWS page.
Your voice is breaking, sorry.
You can just quickly show the S3 page, the service. Am I audible? Am I audible now?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Ankit, now you are. So I was telling, just quickly show the S3 page once we finish with the databases.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. You can.
Okay. Because I am sensing a lot of breaks in your voice, Priyadarshan. I am not sure if my voice is proper or not.
You continue. Ankit, please continue.
Okay, I will continue. So I think you were mentioning about showing a quick exploratory lab on S3, right? That's what you were saying, right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay, so we'll continue with these slides, and so we are talking about the database migration service. Yeah, so it's a managed service. We need not to worry about. Of course, it's a software application, so we not worry about any servers or nothing. What it offers for us is we have a source database and we have a target database. We can do migration of data from two similar databases, like I have to migrate from MySQL lower version to a MySQL higher version, or I want to migrate from MySQL to, let's say, Oracle, or even I want to migrate from MySQL to a NoSQL database, which could be a MongoDB, right? So all these different types of permutation and combinations are, a lot of different permutation combinations are supported in DMS, right? And not only that, I mean, if the target database is something which is not a managed service, right? So if I am having a database which I myself is running, right, so that is also which DMS service can connect to and migrate the data. So that is also it is capable of doing. Okay, so that is what it is. Again, I mean, it's a managed service, we need not to worry about, and the pricing is also pay as you go. So for how much time the migration is happening, during that time we have to pay, right? So this is the DMS service. Okay, so this ends. So basically there are some additional resources also which will be shared with you all, so you folks can go through them after the session also. Okay, Priyadarshan, you are able to hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Ankit, go ahead. Yes.
Actually, your voice is breaking a lot, so I'm just worried about whether I am audible properly or not. That's what I want to just check. Okay, folks, I'm just checking with Priyadarshan on WhatsApp. Just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, guys. Just hold on. I'm just updating Ankit. Don't know why he's not able to hear me, but
Okay, so quickly after this, what we will do, we will just do go to AWS Console. Okay, so for folks who couldn't see the last time, so this is the AWS Management Console. Let me go to the home page. Right, so the what I'm trying to show over here is the how S3 looks like, and the S3 service, which is the one of the most popular services. So this is the search bar. We can search for S3, and we can just go to S3 over here. Okay, so I will just take 1 minute or 2 minute to just to show you, like how things work on AWS S3. So in S3, what we do is we create a bucket. So bucket is nothing but a kind of, you can say, is kind of a parent folder in which we can put our folders and files, right? And obviously to distinguish between to categorize our files which we want to store, right? So we create a bucket, right? So I can create a bucket over here for myself. Okay, while I'm creating a bucket, I have to tell the region in which I want to place this bucket. I'm choosing the region as Mumbai, which is by default chosen for me. Okay, so let me do that. Def. So this is what I'm creating a bucket. Okay, so once the bucket is created, so it is all good, so I can upload any object in it. So I go to upload, right? So I can add files over here. Okay, I'm just looking for my beautiful picture, which I'm unable to find too. Anyways, I can just upload any document. Okay, so yeah, so a text file. Okay, so I'm just uploading a text file. I just select it and it's upload. So it's uploaded. Okay, so it's that simple how to upload a file, right? Okay, if I have to, and then I can close this. So this is the S3, how how S3 dashboard and the interface looks like. We can create different buckets, and definitely in bucket we have different features which I was talking about. Like we can have different life cycles, we can have different permission sets, right? And the different storage classes also we can choose when we are creating a file. So all those things we can very easily do through this interface. Okay, so we'll go back to our session. So we will continue with our sixth module, which is security. Okay. Okay. Right. In this module, we'll be learning first thing about a shared responsibility model. Okay, it's a model, it's a theory basically. So it's just a model created by AWS. And then we will be looking at incident identity and access management. Okay, it's again it's a service from AWS for access and security perspective, right? Then we will also be looking at AWS organizations. Okay, so these are the three main things which we will be looking at in this module. Okay, so let's quickly get started and talk about shared responsibility model. Okay, so shared responsibility model, so it's a theoretical concept in which what AWS is saying is it's talking about the security, and it is telling us that to ensure that whatever applications, whatever data applications you are designing, and the data which you are putting it, you as in the consumers of customers or the users of cloud, so whoever is doing that, so they and AWS, they both share the responsibility of making the complete application and data secure. It's not just the single responsibility of customer, it's not the single just responsibility of AWS. It's a combined shared responsibility to make everything completely secure. Okay, now AWS then goes ahead and talks about which parts of your application, your environment are your duty to keep it secure, and which parts are the duty come under the duties of AWS. Okay, so they talk about two things. One is security in the cloud. Okay, so security in the cloud means we as customer, what are our duties? Okay, so there they use this phrase security in the cloud. And when they have to talk about AWS duties or responsibilities, they refer to as security of the cloud. Okay, so this is what shared responsibility model is. Okay, so now we are looking at some the same model in a bit more detailed way. Okay, so if we look at the block in orange color, which talks about different parts of the environment for which AWS is responsible, right? It's the security of the cloud, right? So the security of the regions, availability zones we spoke about, edge locations, complete hardware infrastructure. When it comes to infrastructure, it would be the physical servers, storage devices, network layers, databases. They are offering databases service, right? So the databases, so all these things, right? And different software applications as well, right? For example, they are offering SQS, right? So all these things combined together, they are the responsibility of AWS. So the responsibility is to keep them secure and properly updated with respect to any recent security patches, and maintain them, keep them operational. Okay, so this is the security of the cloud. Okay, when it comes to the block above that, which is customers, so customer data, of course, whatever data we are storing, it is our responsibility, customer's responsibility to ensure the data is safe and secure, right? Because we will be giving access to the data, right? So right now I created a file, I uploaded a file on S3, right? So right now I have uploaded with what kind of permissions? Have I given permissions to everyone to see, or I have given permission to only specific people to see? So this is in my hands, not in AWS hands. Okay, so customer data, platform, applications, identity and access management, right? So definitely any platform or applications which I am hosting, which I am creating on AWS, right? So I'm creating a database, it's an application, right? So if I'm creating a database in public subnet in which everybody can access, right? So it is my responsibility to take care of that. AWS is not responsible for that, right? Identity and access management, right? So we will definitely be going through this identity and access management in much more detail, but essentially what it talks about is what kind of access you are giving in your account to different people, to different Amazon services, right? So this is again in our hands. Okay, again third layer is with respect to operating systems, what kind of users I'm creating, right? So we just launched an EC2 user, EC2 instance. I can create a new user, I give that user admin privileges for Linux. That's in my hands, right? Network and firewall, we saw NACLs, right? Network access control lists, and then we also saw security groups, right? So it is in our hands to configure them the right way, the way we want, right? So that it protects our data, right? And the last but not the least, we are talking about client-side data inscription, server-side data inscription, right? So for the things which we are creating, right? So I use EC2 server and then I run my own database. Okay, I'm not using RDS. I'm creating my own database, right? So for my own database, it's my duty to encrypt the data when it is getting stored on that EC2 inside my database, right? And when the data is getting transmitted through an API, it is my responsibility to encrypt it, right, using SSL or other protocols, right? So all these things are my responsibility as a customer. It is security in the cloud. And then we also spoke about security of the cloud, which are the responsibilities of AWS. Okay, so this is the shared responsibility models. We just went through what is security in the cloud. Okay, we also went through security of the cloud in much detail, so I'm skipping these two slides. We've spoken about them in good length. Okay, now we will look into identity and access management. We were talking just about it when we were talking about security in the cloud, right? So what is IAM? The short form is IAM. Okay, so IAM enables you to manage access to AWS services and resources securely. Okay, so what I can do whenever I'm creating an AWS account, right? So when I create an AWS account, what happens is I'll just jump to the next slide. Pardon me. So jump to the next slide to explain it in a better way. So when I'm creating an AWS account, you must have folks who have created an account, you would have used an email address, right, through which would have created the account, right? So that email address using which you are logging in, that email address is nothing but the root user. In AWS terminology, we call it in that particular user as root user. Your root user has all the privileges inside your account. Okay, and you can sign it with root privileges by using the email address which you created, right? So that is the root user. Okay, now let's say we have an organization. I've created an account, right, with the root user, right? So there are different types of people who want to do different things in AWS, right? So there could be some system administrators, there could be some developers, right? So they would need different types of access to different types of IT resources, right? So I cannot share root account privileges with every one of them because it would be catastrophic, right? So what I do is I start creating different users in AWS. So how I do that is I use IAM. So IAM lets me create different users, and also when I'm creating users, just to make things very smooth, I can create groups. So for example, I have got 50 users, 50 developers. They have to be given same type of privileges. I create a group and then I put them all the users into that group, right? So that makes things easier, right? Creating a group, right? Then we are talking about IAM policies, right? So how a user gets an access to a specific IT resource. So for example, I'm saying developers should be able to access this EC2 server. So how to do that, right? So definitely we have created a group, right, and we have put all those 50 users into that group, but how does that group gets access to EC2 server, right? So there is a concept of IAM policies, right? So we create a policy which says uh, to whichever entity, that entity could be a user or a group, to whichever entity this policy is applied, that entity will get an access to this EC2 server. So that kind of information, that kind of structure is there in a document which is called as IAM policy. Okay, and of course we have multi-factor authentication, we will just see. So all these things come under IAM, incident and access management, identity and access management. So we have already seen what is AWS account root user. It has got all the privileges. That is the one with which you have created your account using the email address, right? Then we also spoke about IAM policy. So IAM policy is a JSON document, okay, so which allows or denies permissions to AWS, different AWS services or and resources. So that is the purpose of having IAM policy. Okay, so I gave you one example. Here is another example, where you want to allow users to access all of the AWS buckets which you have in your account, right? Or you want to give access to specific AWS buckets, right? So all these different scenarios, different permutation combination of permissions, we can very easily do using IAM policies and groups. Okay. Next slide just shows what a actual IAM policy JSON document looks like, right? So if you are able to see the screen, it says statement, it says effect allow. Okay, so in effect we can have allow or deny. So it says allow. What it should allow? It is an action. So what is an action? It says S3 list object. So on this service S3, list object is a specific action. List object means I can list out the contents of the buckets. I can read the content of a bucket. So that's what is meant by this action. Okay, on which resource this should be allowed? On S3 AWS doc example bucket. So this policy to whichever user or group is applied, that user or group will get read access to AWS doc example bucket. That's what is meant by this IAM policy, right? So I can create IAM policy, I can then attach it to a specific user or a group. That would be much better because I can have many people inside a group, right? So that is what IAM policy, that is what is meant by an IAM policy. Okay, so again we are looking at groups. We just spoke about an IAM group is a collection of IAM users, right? So remember, we can have only users inside a group. We cannot have another group in a group. That is how AWS is structured. Okay, and whenever we are applying any policy to a group, all the users of the group get the same policy applied to them. We need not attach the policy to individual users. We can directly attach the policy to the group. So that's what the purpose of a group is, to make operations easy. Okay, so this is IAM groups. Next up, we are looking at IAM role. So what is a IAM role? Okay, so IAM role is an identity that we can assume to gain temporary access to permissions. Okay, so if there are situations where you want to give some temporary access to either a user, to an application, to a service. Okay, so that temporary access, using the temporary access, one service is able to talk to another service and then the work is done, right? So that kind of things, when one wants to do, we create a role, right? So quick example, right? So in the earlier lab, what we did was we integrated our API gateway with our Lambda, right? So what happens is, behind the scenes, when you would remember that there was a system, there was a browser prompt which had come, which said that you are integrating Lambda with API gateway. API gateway will now be able to access Lambda. Are you okay? And we said okay, right? So what happens behind the scenes is a rule gets created which lets one service talk to another service. Okay, so that's what the purpose of a role is. Okay, so definitely we can have users also doing the same thing, but in this specific example, what happened was one service API gateway was able to talk to Lambda, right? So it's not the case that they have to keep on talking to each other, right? Always, right? Whenever there is a need, whenever the API gateway is invoked, at that time they use the role, talk to Lambda, and they come back. So this is the flow. So that is why it says it. They gain, they assume, they gain temporary access to permissions, right? So they could be an IAM user, it could be an application, or it could be a service. So I've given an example of service. Application could be, for example, inside my application, I have to talk to relational database service, Amazon RDS, right? So I have to get that. So what I can do is I can create a role and I can use that role inside my application. Let's say I have a Java application, so I can use that role inside my Java application, get temporary access, talk to database, get the data, and continue doing my work. So that is a case of an application. I am user. I am a user in one account and I want to do something else, something in another account. So in another account, I don't exist, right? So for doing that, what I can do is I can assume a role in another account and can do certain things. So this is another use case which fits for this scenario, that IAM user also wants to uh, uh, assume a role and do certain things, right? So this is the importance of an IAM role. Okay, so the key thing which we want to remember is we can assume there is a temporary access which we want. So for that we assume a role, and with that temporary access, we get the permission to access that specific AWS service. Right? So that is the key important point for IAM role. Okay, and the last thing for IAM is multi-factor authentication, right? So again, it says two-factor authentication, which AWS is expecting. So definitely, when you are signing in, you are creating an account. So that is something. It's a password which you know, right? Another factor through which it enforces security and encourages people or the users or the account user is to have multi-factor, right? So in multi-factor, the another factor is what you have, right? So one thing is what you know, which is your password, and second factor becomes what you have. So what you have could be a security token, right? So many of you might have logged in into securely into customer environments using some RSA token or those things, right? So those are the things which we are talking about here. So multi-factor authentication is like you enable multi-factor authentication, then you can have either a hardware device with you using which it will generate a token, and while logging in you can provide the token. If you don't have a hardware device, there are software devices also available. For example, Google Authenticator you can use. So using Google Authenticator, whenever you open the authenticator, it gives you a token. You can use that token along with your password, and then you can log in. Okay, so the main thing why we are doing is to make our account more secure, to provide an extra layer of security to our AWS account. Okay, so all these things come under identity and access management. Okay, then we are talking about AWS organizations. So when we are talking about an enterprise, right? Enterprise has it's a big kind of an animal, right? So you have different departments. Each department may be having its own account, right? Each department may be having its own account on AWS, right? So it's an IT services company. You have one healthcare in a vertical, right? So it caters to all healthcare projects, right? BFSI kind of a business unit, right? So or organization unit you have. So in such way, typical organizations are structured, right? So for each business unit or department or organization unit, whatever you want to call, they can have their own accounts as well, right? So for such a huge enterprise setup, how can we manage these different accounts, right? Because from an organization perspective, it's a single organization, right? But it has different accounts, right? So how can we visualize all these accounts? How can we manage them in a better way? So for that purpose, we have AWS organizations, right? So we can use AWS organizations to consolidate and manage multiple AWS account from a single point within a central location. Okay, So what happens is whenever we are creating the very first account, so it automatically creates a root account for us. So it's a root account, it's a parent account kind of a thing. Okay, underneath we can create different accounts, right? And also what we can do is we can create organization units, right? So we can group accounts into logical, we can have a logical grouping for different accounts, right? So what happens is if we create a logical grouping for different accounts, right, so we can then apply different policies. So I can say that let's say for example I have an organization, I say that whatever accounts are being created in my organization, for all these accounts, the whatever users will be created, they must have this specific password policy, which where the password should be of 10 characters minimum. So such kind of a policy I've created, right? But then what happens is out of my 10 different departments, four departments come and they say I don't want such kind of policy, we want a different kind of policy, right? So all these different things happen. So for these scenarios what AWS offers is organization units. So what we can do is we can, these child accounts, so we have a root account and these child accounts, so these child accounts we can group accounts into organization units. It's a logical grouping, so that to this complete logical group of organization unit we can then apply a policy, and then that policy can get applied to only that those particular 4 accounts, not the other remaining 6 account in the example which I gave. Okay, so we'll just go through. So AWS organization automatically gets a root, which is a parent container for all the accounts, right? And then we have some service control policies. So basically again these are like different policies, kind of permission sets which I can create, which I am making mandatory that whatever accounts are getting created in my organization, they have to follow, right? And then we can have organization units. Again, it's kind of a grouping which I can create, right? So moving on to the next slide. So on this slide we are talking about one root over here, right? And then we have got different 4 type of accounts. So one for finance department, IT department, HR department, legal department, right? Okay, so that is one scenario. Then if we just go to the third slide, so I'll just let the slide load. Yeah, so in this example what has happened is HR and legal, they are saying that no, we have some policies which are common to us but which are different from these 2 accounts. So what we do is we create a organization unit. It's just a logical grouping of these 2 accounts, right? So we apply one policy which gets applied to these accounts, and then we apply a different policy to this OU organization unit which gets applied to only these accounts. So those kind of situations, those kind of scenarios definitely happen in bigger organizations and enterprises. So these features from AWS organizations become very handy. Okay, now we are moving to another important concept, denial of service attack. It is a very common thing. We keep on hearing news and whatnot. So what it is, it's a deliberate attempt to make a website or application unable to users, right? So simple thing which we did, right? In our earlier example, kill CPU. So that's what we did. We attempted to kill ourselves, right? So it's opposite way. So we will try to kill the CPU of somebody else, right? So how can we do? We can we can bombard the server, right, with so many requests, right? So we bombard it so much that it starts serving legitimate or genuine customers, right? So i this is a typical denial of service kind of an attack which hackers and mischievous people do, right? And it comes into 2 flavors, right? So one flavor is that it is happening from a single source. There is another flavor also, so it is known as distributed denial of service. So in this what happens is hacker creates logical multiple copies of himself or herself, or maybe the software application replicates creates its multiple copies, like as in bots, and then these bots start bombarding the targeted application from different locations, right? So this is like distributed denial of service attack, right? It's much more severe as compared to DDoS attack. Okay, so we just revisited or revised these 2 things. Why? Because we wanted to just quickly talk about AWS Shield. Okay, so AWS Shield is again a service from AWS. By default, it is automatically on. It is on. Sorry, by default, it is the default version comes at no cost. Okay, So there are two flavors. It's a standard one, it comes at no cost, and there is an advanced flavor which comes at a cost, right? So it protects all the customers at no cost, and it protects all the AWS resources from the most common frequently occurring type DDoS attacks, right? Advanced one is a paid service that provides detailed attack diagnostics and the ability to detect and mitigate sophisticated DDoS attacks, right? So it's slightly advanced version of Shield. So the key thing which we want to know is, when it comes to DDoS attacks or these type of attacks, then definitely there is a service which is called as AWS Shield, which can be used. So that is the key thing of this slide. Okay. Again, we have some additional resources which you all can go through when you get this deck offline after this webinar. Okay. So now we are done with sixth module. Now we will be so I'll just take a pause for 1 minute. I'll just give a chance for people to ask if they have any questions, and Sudarshan can respond to them.
Thank you, Ankit. Just yeah, you can take a quick 5 minutes. We will continue after that. Just quick 5 minutes break, and meanwhile, people asking questions. I'll respond to the questions they are asking.
So I am unable to hear Priyadarshan. I'm just talking to him over WhatsApp. I'm not sure if you all are able to hear him properly or not. Okay, I'm audible. So should I? Okay, so at this point, before starting with module 7, we will be taking a quick 5-minute break. I would request Priyadarshan to just start the timer if he can. And then we will just take a quick break, drink water, and then we'll continue.
So friends, as I said, we will talk offline. So here is a WhatsApp group I'm providing you. After the session also, we will keep you, supporting until you clear your exam. Hope everyone heard me. Perfect. So please join the WhatsApp group, and so that we can continue your keep on clarify your doubts, any requirements or anything that you want. We will also try to bring some more additional short sessions to gather back and clear your doubts. So that is the purpose of creating this WhatsApp group. I will send it via email also, so we will keep in touch and make sure we clarify things. I request do not post anything right now. Post the session, we can talk. And also one etiquette, wait for if someone asks a question, just give a minute or so. Once I reply or we reply to that, then you can put your question. That would be a great help to us, so that we can address each and every one.
Okay, should we start?
Yes, Ankit, please go ahead.
Okay, now you are absolutely clear.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, my screen is visible, right?
Yes, it's visible. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so we have till now we have covered. We're done with 6 modules. We are starting with 7th module, which is monitoring and analysis. Okay. So learning objectives, we are talking about AWS CloudWatch. That is one of the key service which we would be looking at in this module. Then we are also talking about CloudTrail and Trusted Advisor. These are the 3 services which we will be learning in this module. Okay. So AWS CloudWatch, right? So it's a service to monitor and manage different metrics, configure alarms based on the data from those metrics, right? So CloudWatch is a very big service in itself, right? So as we can see, it many things it can do for us, right? So the very first thing which it offers is with respect to metrics, right? So we have different services, for example EC2 servers which we are running. So we want to monitor our physical servers, right? So we want to monitor their CPU usage, RAM utilization, disk usage, disk reads, disk writes, and different network related parameters as well, right? So all these parameters we can easily not only collect, but also create different metrics, different nice graphs on CloudWatch, and then we can create alarms. So we can create an alarm. So if it's a production environment, we can create very quickly, we can create an alarm saying that whenever my web server CPU utilization goes beyond 80% and it stays there for beyond more than 80% for let's say 5 minutes, I should get a SMS, right? So definitely as a system administrator, I cannot keep watching my uh, environment or servers all the time. I have to be notified if something is wrong, right? So very easily it can be done. Just configure a metric, configure alarm, just create these alarms and done with it, right? So this is one is very specific area. Another very good usage of CloudWatch is CloudWatch logs, right? So in CloudWatch logs, again, same kind of functionality. So we have our application web server, and then we have different types of logs. We have operating system logs, we have web server logs, we have replication logs as well, right? So we want a central place in which all these logs are visible. Why? Because I can have 4 or 5 different web servers which are running. So if I want, it is very tedious for me to log into each server, see the logs, right, and do something about it, right? So CloudWatch logs gives a very good facility wherein we can collect logs from all the different servers at one place. We can analyze them, we can query them, right? So all these facilities are available on CloudWatch. Okay, so it's a very good service from a monitoring perspective, right? Monitoring of our servers and different services, right? So we just spoke about alarms that automatically perform actions if based the different settings which we are doing. So if a value of a metric is going above or below at a specific predefined threshold, action can be taken, right? So this is an alarm which we can create, right? uh, this is kind of it's a quick picture of a CloudWatch dashboard, right? So it is, we can create different dashboards, right? So for example, I have a system administrator and I want, when I'm logging into my AWS account, I want to see a dashboard which gives me health of different things, right? So I want to see my health of my RDS instances, right? How much is the CPU utilization, what is the free space available. With respect to EC2, I want to see the network utilization or CPU utilization, right? So all these things are available, right? So I can create a dashboard, and then on the dashboard I can pick and choose specific metrics, and I can combine those metrics and I can create my own dashboard which is more meaningful for me, right? So it saves a lot of time, right? So I just log in, and just after login, just by spending 5 seconds, I get to know how my production environment or any environment is doing. Is there anything something which needs to be taken care of, or everything is good or not, right? So it's and again, it's another feature of CloudWatch, and it's very good from from a usage perspective. Okay, so this is about CloudWatch. We will move ahead and we will talk about CloudTrail. Okay, so CloudTrail is again a monitoring tool from AWS thing. So here in CloudTrail, what it does is, whenever anything is happening inside AWS account. So when I say anything, what I mean by that is whatever activity is happening. So if I am creating an EC2 instance, or I am creating a Lambda, I'm creating a user, or whatever, right? So whatever events are happening. So in trail terminology, we call these as events, right? So whatever events are happening inside an AWS account, all these events are get recorded, and we can see a history of all these events as a trail. So that is why the name Cloud Trail. So we can see all this complete history if we go and we check the Cloud Trail, right? So it records all the API calls which are happen inside my account, right? So it gives complete details. So it is very helpful, right? So for example, if I just go to the next slide, right, and I want to see, like, what exactly happened. So all this information I will be able to see, like what happened. Okay, a new IAM user was created. Who created it? IAM user John. So one user was John who created another user Mary. When this happened, it happened at 1st of January. So date and time is revealed. How it was created? It was created through management console. So such level such depth of detail, such level of detail is available for this event. So this is a single event, right? So there are all the events which are happening inside your account. We can see all these events when we go to CloudTrail, and it can be extremely useful, right? We want to explore if something went wrong, right? So we want to see what went wrong, when went wrong, who was responsible. So all these different kind of things we can do. It's like an audit trail which is happening over there, right? So that is the purpose of having CloudTrail. Okay. Another key service which is very important when it comes to monitoring is trusted advisor. Okay, so in trusted advisor, it's like it's trusted advisor. It's a web service, right? So it inspects our AWS environment and provides some recommendations, right? So what has happened is AWS has created some best practices, right? So best practices based on different settings, right? So what should be the right configurations or very good configurations for, let's say, security groups, what should be the configurations for VPCs. So like that, they have created basis these, they have created some best practices, right? So what trusted advisor does is it scans your environment and then it compares the configuration against the best practices, right? And then it gives you some suggestions or recommendations, right? Now it gives recommendations in 5 different areas. Okay, cost, performance, security, fault tolerance, and service limits. Okay, service limits is like so we understand cost, right? So definitely if we are trying to use something which if we modify our behavior of usage, we can save some cost, right? So for example, we are using EC2 from a very long time, we can use reserved instance, right? So we can save some cost. So it's a recommendation which it will give, right? From a performance perspective, right? So performance perspective, we can have load balancers with us, right? Or we can have different better EC2 instances type, right? We saw different EC2 instances, right? Like compute and all those things. So those recommendations it can make, right? From a security perspective, of course, like, how we have configured our security groups, right? Have we configured the network access layer properly or not? What kind of subnets are private or not, right? So from that perspective, fault tolerance, of course. So we spoke about a scenario where we had created EC2 server and there was a recommendation that you create two EC2 servers in two different availability zones, right? So that our application is fault tolerant. Even if one availability zone goes down, still we are able to serve our customers. So from that perspective, what are the recommendation? And from service limits, right? So service limit, what I mean by is every service has certain limits. Okay, not limits in terms of what they can do or what they cannot, limits in terms of how much can be done in a specific quota kind of a thing, right? So from that perspective, it makes some recommendations, right? So for example, if we talk about service limit, we talk about free tier, right? So in free tier, if I talk about, so every month 750 hours are free, right? So if we are going beyond 750 hours or if we are approaching, there would be some recommendation on service limits category. Okay, so these are the different categories in which AWS Trusted Advisor will make some recommendations for us. Okay, again, in each category there are 3 different uh, uh, ways in which it signals. So there are 3 different signals, right? Green, orange, and red. Okay, green means everything is good, there is no recommendation. Okay, orange represents some recommended investigations, right? And then red circle represents some actions, right? So there are some investigations and then there are some specific actions which we can take. Okay, so in that way this is categorized. So, okay, so I just taken you to the next slide where it gives a screenshot of AWS Trusted Advisor. These are the categories, and these are the 3 different signals, like green, orange, and red. And the number signifies what is the count of these things, whether there are any actions or investigations which we need to do, or there are any specific actions which we can take. So that ways, and then we can click on these and we can see what exactly is AWS Trusted Advisor talking about from that perspective. Okay, so this completes our module 7, which is monitoring and analysis.
So Ankit, can we just quickly see the dashboard, just for visualize everyone to how the CloudWatch dashboard looks like?
Sure. So if I have, again, your voice broke, but I understood you mentioned that. Let's look at the CloudWatch. Okay. So I have just opened uh, Management Console, AWS Management Console. I am on the search bar. I will be searching for CloudWatch. Okay. So as I was mentioning that, inside CloudWatch, there are many things, right? So there are many things. Some of these things are also beyond of, the current scope, but the most important things which we discussed, first was metrics, right? Then we spoke about alarms, and then we spoke about logs, right? So let's just quickly take a look on all these different areas, right? So I go to metrics, right? So we know that, in our initial labs, we had launched some EC2 instances, right? So we go to EC2, okay, and then let's see what kind of metrics we can have over there. So let's say CPU utilization. Okay, so the instance which we had launched, right? So this is the CPU utilization metric which we can see right now. So right now it is showing till 3:20 p.m. Okay, so right now it is 3:26 p.m. It's 5 minutes behind. Okay, so it is showing how the graph has been for CPU utilization, right? So this is a metric which it is already collecting, right? We did not do anything about it, right? We did not say that, okay, go ahead and collect the CPU information for me. CPU utilization information, CloudWatch is already collecting. The extra feature what I am getting now is I can watch it as a metric. I can create a metric out of it. I can have different types of graphs, right? So line graph, number graph, right? So all those things I can have. Okay, and then what I can also do is I can, so this is the metric. Okay, so it is giving me as a metric, and then what I can do from over here is I can create an alarm, right? So now we are going from metric to alarms, right? So from here, from this dashboard itself, I can create an alarm. So this is a bell icon. I can click on this bell icon. Okay, so I have now came to the screen of creating an alarm, right? So I can create an alarm. So I can, this is the metric which I've chosen, CPU utilization. Okay, so I can have different statistic. Mostly the statistic which we use is average value, right? And we can specify the average over a period of time. So I am saying average of 5 minutes, right? Then I can give threshold type. So I can say, okay, when the CPU utilization is more than, let's say, 80%, right? So that kind of a thing I can say. So okay, so I have given the condition when this alarm should be set on. When the alarm is on, what needs to be done? That also I need to tell what is the action which has to be taken, right? So when the alarm will be in three states. Okay, in alarm means the alarm is ringing. Okay means the alarm is okay, there is no ringing, it's switched off. Insufficient data, what happens sometimes is the alarm is associated to a EC2 instance. So for example, if I switch off the EC2 instance, there is no CPU utilization. So this alarm goes into insufficient data state, where it says that I don't have sufficient data. I don't know, somebody has maybe switched off the EC2 server, right? So that is that state. So what it says is, okay, as an action, you can create a notification. So what I can say is, whenever this alarm is ringing, whenever the state is an alarm, you send out a notification, right? So I can have different, I can use SNS, right? Remember, that is a simple notification service, which was one of the initial things which we learned in module 2, right? So I can use a simple notification service, using which I can send a SMS notification to my system administrator, right? Auto scaling, right? So I can add a auto scaling policy. I can choose my auto scaling group, the same group which I had shown you, and then I can say that, okay, whenever 80% or beyond is going, I will trigger this auto scaling policy, right? So these are the different actions. Okay, most important actions which usually I see happening, the practical ones are the auto scaling policy and the notification ones. So when I say create, it is going to create a alarm for me. We have one already created alarm. We'll just go and take a look over there. So this is the alarm which we had created. So this alarm is being used. So the lab which we did, wherein, we saw that whenever the CPU utilization is more than 10%, it gave a signal to auto scaling. Okay, and then auto scaling launched a new server, right? So this is the flow. Whenever the CPU utilization went more than 10%, this alarm rang. It was in alarm state, and then it gave a signal to auto scaling. That is how the information flows. Okay, so this is the alarm which I had created beforehand. Okay, so this is monitoring that CPU utilization. So it is not just CPU utilization. That's what I was telling. It collects various different metrics, right? CPU utilization, disk utilization, memory utilization we can have, and the network layer, how many bytes are going in, how many bytes are going out, all those things we can measure, and we can create different types of alarms, right? So this is alarms. The last thing what we can look at is the group logs, right? So right now I don't have a logs configured. So this is something which doesn't get automatically configured. Okay, so we will have to configure it. So how to configure it? So wherever we want to have logs coming to, so for example, we have different EC2 servers, we have web servers running over there, applications, and I want my logs to come over here. So I will have to install some agents on my servers through which those logs can be streamed into logs, AWS watch logs. Okay, so as it says, I can monitor my logs, I can analyze it, or definitely I can store it. So what I can do is I can delete my logs from my server after 1 or 2 days, but those logs, once they are streamed into CloudWatch logs, they will remain for here. I can decide how many days I want to keep my logs over here in CloudWatch. But the good part is, the best part, which with the key point is, I can analyze my logs. Okay, I can query my logs. Okay, I can query my logs, look for specific keywords, look for specific patterns, right? So all those things I can do over here in CloudWatch log. That is first thing. Second thing is also the consolidation, right? So I have 5 different servers. I need not to log into each server independently, right? All those 5 servers are sending logs in the central location, which is CloudWatch logs. Okay, so this is about the CloudWatch logs. Okay, so we will go back to our next module now, which is
Ankit,
pricing and support.
Ankit, give me just 1 second. There
Okay.
is a quick poll coming in. I will request all participants to, just fill up the poll quickly, and in a minute we will start again.
Um, you're not audible. I'm not sure if you're not just audible to me or for everyone.
Monira, we'll come back in a minute. We'll start again in a minute. Okay, thank you very much for responding. We will start again now. Ankit, if you can hear me, please go ahead. Thank you all.
Okay, I was able to hear the part. Go ahead. So I will start. Okay, so now we come to the next module for the day, which is pricing and support. So here are the learning objectives. We try to understand different pricing and support models which are available to us from AWS. We also look at AWS Cost Explorer, budgets, AWS organizations, and consolidated billing. We also look at pricing calculator and the support plans which are available. Okay, so it's completely related to pricing and the different tools which are available to us and support tools which are available to us from AWS. Okay. Yes. So AWS free tier. So we have been talking about free tier. It helps us to begin using certain services without having to worry much about incurring the costs. Okay. There are three types of offers which are available. Okay, so depending on services, there are three specific scenarios which can happen. There are some services which are always free. Okay, there are some services which are 12 months free. There are some services which are on a trial basis. So you have a trial for, let's say, 15 days, 90 days, and then after that you start paying, right? So that's how AWS is structured. Okay. So when we talk about always free, right? So these offers do not expire. Okay. So what I mean by always free is not that a service is always free. You are not going to pay anything for any time. So that's not what I meant by. So what I meant by is there is an offer which is always relevant, right? So it doesn't matter whether you have used AWS account or you have been using AWS account for 1 year. You can use it for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. It doesn't matter. So these offers are always relevant and are applied to you as a customer. So for example, AWS Lambda. So in AWS Lambda, 1 million, it says per month there are 1 million free requests and up to 3 milliseconds of compute. So this is per month free thing which Lambda is giving to you, right? So it doesn't matter how long you've been using AWS, right? Similarly, when we talk about Amazon DynamoDB, right? So it gives 25 gigabytes of free storage every month, right? So whether you have passed 12 months or not, and this is what we keep getting every month, right? So this is meant by always free. So there is some quota of a service which is always free for usage, right? Now there is 12-month free, right? So there are some areas, some services which say that okay, it's a 12-month kind of a free thing. So when you are signing up, from signing date till 12-month, those things will be free for you. Okay, from your initial sign up date, right? So some examples, specific examples are like Amazon S3 standard storage, right? So and is monthly hours for EC2 compute, right? So when you're talking about EC2 compute, 750 hours are free, right? Data transfers, right? So when we're talking about Amazon CloudFront, the data transfer out is free, right? So these things definitely it's very clear when you are launching Amazon AWS services. You on the launch page itself, you will be able to very clearly see what are the limits, whether this is some quota is free for a specific time, or it is just for 12 months, or how they are offering. So the AWS service, the interface makes it very clearly visible to us. Only thing is we need to pay attention to those things and keep those things in mind, because I have seen many of my friends also, it happened with me also, that if we are not very careful with these things, that then what happens is, if we are learning if we are launching AWS services from learning perspective, what happens is we keep these things, we don't switch them off, right? If we don't switch them off, so for example, EC2 server, right? We did a lab, right? So after our session is over, I'm going to go back and switch those EC2 servers off, right? If I don't do that, there are 3 servers which are running right now, right? So definitely I will have to pay for 750 hours for 2 servers. For one server it will be free, but for 2 servers I am going to pay. So we need to be very careful, though it is very clearly visible, but we need to keep in our mind that we need to be attentive to these things. And then just remember, whatever you are switching on, just remember to switch it off if you're not using it, right? Last thing is the trial basis, right? So short-term free trial offers, right? So from the day you activate a service and a specific length of time, depending on your number of days or amount of usage, some things are free. So for example, Amazon Inspector, right? So we have not covered Amazon Inspector, but again, it's a service. So it's a 90-day free trial. So for 90 days you have a free trial available to you. You can use it. After then you have to start paying, right? So it's a one time offer, 90-day offer. After then you have to start paying. Again, another example is Amazon Light Sale. So the objective is that you as users should be aware of this, and also when you are writing the exam, you need to be aware of, like, what are the free offers, what are the different categories of free offers. As I told that, some offers are always free, for example monthly quota, right, or Lambda, and those examples we saw. Then there are some offers which are just for 1 year period from the day you have signed in, right? And then there are some offers which are just for trial period, right, for initial 5 days, initial 90 days, or initial 750 hours of running a service. So those kind of things. So these things you need to remember. Okay. Then we will go and see, look at the Amazon pricing concepts. So definitely we have spoken and spent time at great length in understanding what does pay for what you use means, right? So definitely whatever we are using, we have to pay for that, right? We saw EC2, we switch it off, we stop the EC2, we stop paying. So whatever we are using, we need to pay for that. So this is a common theme, common baseline principle for all the different services which AW has, right? Pay less when you reserve. Again, we saw that we are using reserved instances, we are reserving, right? So everything remains same. I mean, the type and everything remains same. It's just that we are reserving. We are saying that, okay, we'll be using it for 1 year or 3 months. Definitely, we get a discount, right? And pay less with volume-based discounts when you use more, right? So we saw that with Amazon savings plan, right? So with savings plan, we are saying, okay, in 1 year we'll be using computation for these many amounts, these many number of hours, right? So again, same thing. So bottom line is, if we reserve or uh, we use more, so in these situations we get good discounts from AWS, right? So this is another point which related to Amazon pricing concepts which we need to remember. Okay. Then let's talk about uh, a very different service. It's a very good thing. So it's a Amazon pricing calculator. So again, it's a service. It's not a service as in that it doesn't cost you anything, right? So you can just go ahead and use this tool which is available, through which you can estimate. So let's say you are starting your journey for cloud, right? You either are learning for a education purpose, your certifications, or you are actually wanting to use this these different AWS services, right? So in that situation, what you can quickly do is you can open this tool. The link is available over here. If time permits, we will go and see it also. So in this tool, you can use the specific select a specific service, the region in which, because remember, the pricing is different for different regions, right? So we select the service, we select the region. For that service, we may want to select different configurations. For example, for EC2, we may select what kind of EC2 instance we want to use, and then basis that, AWS will tell us what is the estimated cost of running it for a month probably, right? So that is a very good tool which we can use not only for education or learning purpose, but also when we are using AWS professionally. In my job, I have to use it very often, right? Because developers and we keep on building solutions using new and new services about which we don't know in depth in terms of how the pricing will work, right? So, or otherwise what happens is, for various services the pricing is very complex. For Lambda, the price is very complex. So to get a feel, we just use a tool and we get a quotation from there. We can share that quotation with our different departments for getting an approval. So it's a very good tool, and I would highly encourage you all to visit this tool and make use of this tool. Okay, AWS pricing calculator. Okay, in this pricing calculator there is a concept of group. So I can create a group. It's just a logical grouping of some estimates. So I say that, okay, there is a finance department who is using these services, there is a IT department who wants to use these services. So I create a group and I have those services grouped under a group. Okay, so basically, attached to a specific group, and then it becomes a group, and I can share that total estimate with that specific department or the specific group, that these are the services which you want to use. So this would be the cost, right? So maybe we want to do this by cost center basis, or those things. So this group concept becomes very helpful in that situation. Okay, so again, this is AWS pricing calculator. Do visit it. Moving ahead, again, we are just since we are in the pricing module, we are just touching again on the Amazon EC2 pricing. It's sure, it's a repetition, but it's for good. We pay for only the compute time that we use when the instances are running. If we are using reserved instances, or if we choose to subscribe to a savings plan, then definitely the cost of EC2 comes down, right? uh, when we talk about S3, S3 also has got different parameters which it considers for pricing, right? So it has a different cost components. Storage, right? So how much you are storing, so only for that you would be paying. Requests and data retrievals, right? So whatever number of requests you make to for retrieval, right, or for storing, so the number of requests is also one factor which they consider. It's a part of the cost component. Data transfer, the amount of data transfer, one is the number, second is the amount. So the amount of data which is getting transferred in and out, right, in MBs or KBs or DBs, this is also one factor which is considered, right? And then definitely if we start using different features, so we spoke about different features, right? Versioning, right? So there is one feature in S3 which is replication. We can replicate the data from one one or more buckets in one region to another region, right? So if we start using these specific services, then also the cost of using these services increase. So this is how S3 is doing its costing. So these are the various cost components. Okay. Now we move forward in this module of pricing. We look at the billing dashboard. Okay, so billing dashboard is like it's AWS as an account. It is generating different bills. So we want to when we go into billing dashboard, there are different aspects which we can look at, and we can understand why our bill is this much, right? So we can view the different past bits over there, right? Whenever we are viewing a bill, we can see the amount which has been used by each service. That also we can go to depth. What is the amount which so let's say in the month of April the amount is, let's say, $500. So we get a nice breakup in the bill which says this service used $100, this service used these many dollars. So we can see the bill like that. We can so apart from bills, we can see spent. So right now we are we are just about to complete the month. The month is not complete and the bill is not generated, but starting from the month till now, how much money or how much bill has been generated, right? What has been spent so far from starting to till date, right? And differentiating it by service. So that is what is meant by view month to date spent by service. So even that kind of information we are able to see, right? Another great information we are able to see is free tier usage, right? So you are bothered, you are just using AWS for education purpose, you have to keep a tab that I should not increase the free tier which is available to me. Make use of this. Go to billing dashboard, look at one graph over there which says what is your free tier usage. So it will show EC2 running instances, you have used 70% of available free tier usage to you. So that way it's another very good way of keeping a tab of free tier usage. Another important point over here is cost explorer and budgets, right? So cost explorer is like I want to explore my costs, right? So I can use different parameters. I can I can say, okay, I want to explore my cost for the last 6 months. In last 6 months data I can get in nice dashboards and nice graphs. Okay, and then I can say, okay, now last these 6 months I want to see only the amount which AWS Lambda has generated. So like that I can slice the data, slice the information, so that I can understand how what is my usage and where my money is going. So those kind of exploration things I can do using cost explorer. budgets also I can create. So I can set a budget for myself that, okay, I want that, I should not be spending more than $500 every month on this account, right? So these budgets I can create, and then automatically I'll be getting alerts whenever the amount is going beyond that point. So these kind of budgets I can create. We have been talking about savings plan, right? We spoke about that. It's savings plan, I can commit to a specific amount of compute power, right? So those kind of savings plan I can purchase, I can manage, right? And again, there are different reports also which we can get published. So this is the AWS billing dashboard. It's a very detailed, and lot of graphs and other small features are available. Definitely some of the things are very useful when you start using AWS, either for educational purpose or clearing certification, or even for if you're using it for your enterprises, then it's a must to know kind of a service for you as a solution architect, or just as a business manager. Okay. Moving ahead, uh, we are talking about consolidated billing feature. So earlier we spoke about AWS organizations, right? So AWS organization enables you to organize your accounts within the organization, right? So we spoke about that an enterprise can have many different accounts for different departments, right? So consolidated billing is again a feature of AWS organization, right? So we have an organization, we have got 10 different departments. Each department has its own account. I maybe I don't know, I'm the CEO of this organization, right? So I want to pay these bills. Okay, CEO is not going to pay the bill, maybe CFO wants to pay the bill, right? So the CFO wants to take a look from a organization level, not from these individual account levels, right? So consolidated billing is very much important, that some at the organization level, all these accounts bills are consolidated and presented as one report, right? So that I can understand that how much amount I have to pay, and while I'm doing that, I can also see like what all different accounts I have, and which account is using more, which account is less using less, right? What is happening? So those kind of things I can see from a financial perspective, right? So this consolidated billing gives a very nice feature in this, for especially to the finance team of enterprises to do such kind of things, right? So in the monthly bill, as we can see, we can have itemized charges, right? So by each account, by each service, kind of a drill down we can do. Okay, so this is what is consolidated billing. We have some examples coming on along. So yes, just waiting for the slide to load. Yep. So this is an example. So we have a primary account, which is usually the root, and then we have these three different accounts. One account bill is $19.64, 1996, 2006. So these are the different amount these accounts have, right? So when we talk about uh, a consolidated kind of a billing, right? So what happens is, this kind of a structure, more or less we will get that the total amount is $73. A primary account bill is 14, one is 19, two is 1996, and third account bill is 20.06, right? And then it's just a conceptual level, but definitely when the actual consolidated billing happens, we can even drill down to even detailed services, like what is happening, why let's say account 3 is overshooting, right? So we can go to a very detailed level analysis as well. Okay, so this is consolidated billing. It is very much important from an enterprise perspective. Okay, next up, we are talking about AWS Cost Explorer. I briefly spoke about that. It's again a tool inside our billing dashboard. It's very useful, especially when you are trying to understand and manage your costs over a period of time, right? So it's more of understanding the previous costs, like 5-month cost or 6 months cost. You're trying to understand what are the topmost services which are contributing a lot to my bill, right? So that kind of filters, that kind of analysis you want to do. So AWS Cost Explorer is the main thing to go for, right? So on the next slide, if you can see, uh, so this is a snapshot of the AWS Cost Explorer. I've selected 6 months as the period. Okay, and per month amount is being shown over here, right? And these different colors are the different services, right? So as you can see, the purple color, which is the EC2 instance, EC2 instance type is T2 micro, right? So that is the highest, that is the main service or main instance type which is causing the highest amount in my bill. It is using the most percentage of amount. right? So that kind of analysis I can do, and then if I want to do anything else, something about it to bring down my bill, I can do that. So this is Cost Explorer. It's a very useful tool, especially for enterprises, people, system administrators who would want to, or an architects who would want to work in enterprises. It's a very go-to tool to help your organization to reduce the costs. Okay. Then we were talking about in the learning objectives, we were talking about support plans. So support plans is where you as a developer or an enterprise or organization would want some support, technical support or non-technical support from AWS, right? So it comes in 4 flavors. Definitely, when we keep going down, the amount keeps going on increasing. So the very first flavor is basic support. It is free of charge. It is available to each and every one of us whenever we are creating an account. Basic support is always available, right? And then developer, business and enterprise. So developer is, from developer it starts a paid support. So developer, business and enterprise are paid supports. Okay. And then developer is less costly, business is more costly, and enterprise is the costliest, right? And then definitely with cost, the kind of support which we are getting, right, the response time which we are getting varies a lot, right? The kind of services which we are getting for different types of support varies a lot, right? So from the certification perspective, this knowledge only we need to know that there are different types of support plans are available. 4 support plans. Basic is free, and we have developer, business and enterprise. Enterprise is the most costliest one. The response times are very good, I mean very less, and definitely there are different services also which they are offering, right? Okay. Then just in conjunction with the support plans, we have this concept of technical account manager. So as I was saying that when we go from basic to developer to business to enterprise, enterprise has much more features. So enterprise comes with a technical account manager. Okay, so there is a specific person which is appointed for your organization, for your account, which has this enterprise support plan, and it's your primary point of contact. You can directly call this person, you can email them if you want any guidance or architectural review or anything, if you want to do with respect to, if you have any question, if you are facing any issues. So you can directly contact this person, and that person is going to take care of getting this whatever task you have, getting this done, right? So this happens when you have a enterprise kind of a plan, right? If you have developer or business plans, you don't typically get a technical account manager. You have to create tickets, and then definitely the response times are definitely better as compared to the basic or the development plan. Okay. So this is about the support plans which are available. Last, just we're talking about AWS Marketplace. So AWS Marketplace is just like any other digital marketplace, right? Which offers something for sale, right? So what it offers, it's a digital catalog, it's a digital marketplace which offers thousands of software listings from different independent vendors, right? So for example, I want to launch EC2 instance which should have a specific version of an open source library available to me, right? So I have two choices. I launch my EC2 instance, and then I grab all the software pieces, all the dependencies and everything required, and I install it and I create my complete EC2 server. One other option could be I can look out for this specific kind of setup in AWS Marketplace. Is there some vendor which is providing this kind of image which already has all these softwares and libraries already burned into that image, right? So if that is my need, definitely I can save a lot of time, because if I have to create an image, I have to launch server, I have to install all the things, I have to configure. So all the time I can save if I go to AWS Marketplace and I look for that kind of an image from them, right? Definitely it's a marketplace. People are offering these images, software applications for a price, right? But again, it's a good place to explore, as and when you start using AWS more and more, your need grows, your enterprise needs grows. Then in such situations, definitely you would be finding it very useful if you start finding the relevant items. Not you are creating those items, but you are able to reuse those items, you are able to purchase those items from AWS Marketplace. Okay, so now if we're talking about these additional resources, of course, as I've been saying, this deck will be shared with you. You can go through the deck, and you can read, go through these resources offline. Okay, coming to module 9, which is Migration. So yes, of course, we were, I think in module 1, I was talking about when we were talking about hybrid kind of a situation, or not only just hybrid, we have decided that we have to host all our applications on cloud. So in those situations, there is a chance that we already have our applications, our data hosted either in some different cloud, right, or it is hosted on a private cloud, maybe on Rackspace, or it is hosted on prem. So on all these three different situations, my scenario is that I have to take my applications and data to AWS, right? So this is the domain of migration, right? So let's see what are the objectives which we will be talking about. So we'll be talking about a framework. Okay, so a framework is nothing but a conceptual model which is coming from AWS that helps create processes and helps enterprises and solution architects to uh, run or create the strategy, write a strategy for migration, and to execute that strategy properly. So that is a framework which AWS is giving. We will understand the theory behind it. We will also see different strategies of migration. Okay, so these are the two main objectives of this module. Okay, so let's quickly go into the cloud adoption framework module. Cloud adoption framework. Okay, so CAF is the acronym which they have given to it. So what it is talking about? So it is talking about a very basic thing. What it says is, even if even if a business or an enterprise wants to go to cloud, right, their business, what are the business objectives which they are trying to achieve, right? So for example, if there is a, let's say we were taking an example of big basket, right, or a Flipkart, right? So these are the enterprises or businesses which they have. So their CEO or their board of directors, they might be having some business objectives. Those business objectives could be many, right? So there could be like, we want to capture half of India. They've already captured, but I'm just telling. So half of India, South India, we want to capture, or we want to expand into North India, right? So that our sales are increased, our revenues are increased, right? Or another could be, similar business objectives could be like, our user experience is very bad, right? They are not able, they are getting items delivered in a very bad shape. The packaging is very bad. So there are n number of things which are impacting our user experience. So we want to improve our user experience, right? So there could be different business objectives for businesses at different times, right? They want to achieve different objectives, right? So they remain the same, right? So even if you have to migrate from on-prem to cloud, or different, like a space to cloud, or a different cloud vendor, so you would still want to be able to achieve the same business objectives, right? We cannot go and tell that, oh, you had a business objective that you want to expand into North India, but since you are doing migration, you won't be able to do that. It's not the way it works, right? So the point over here is, you would be wanting to achieve the same business objectives even if you are doing a migration, but how you would be achieving those objectives, they may change, right? So what is fixed is the what is fixed, but how can change, right? So you have to go to Delhi, right? So still you have to go to Delhi, but instead of going by train, you are going by an aeroplane, right? So what remains the same, but how can change? So that is the first principle, which comes under this framework. Using this is the basic principle, and then this framework talks about different perspectives, right? So perspectives are nothing but different areas of focus, right? So areas of focus for whom? For people who want to create a complete migration plan, migration strategy. So they need to focus in 6 different areas. What are these areas? Let's talk about. So instead of on this slide, we will talk about those areas in different slides going forward. Okay. So the very first perspective, definitely the very first thing which we are talking about, it's the business perspective, right? So the business perspective says that IT aligns with business needs, right? So that's what I was saying. Whatever business needs you have, the objectives you have, whatever you are doing in IT, those initiatives which you are taking in IT, they have to align with your business perspective, right? And this is one common theme, common principle. So for doing that, you will have to speak to different people. You will have to make sure that the concerns of these people are taken care of, right? So for example, business managers, finance managers, CFOs, right? So, other stakeholders like board of directors, right? So these are the different people, these are the stakeholders uh, whom have to be assured that yes, though there are certain things which are changing, but those, even with those changes, IT will still be aligned with the business perspective, right? So this is the first focus area. Focus area for whom? I am again repeating, focus area for people who are creating the migration strategy or migration plan. They have to focus on this area. Okay. Again, it's part of the stakeholder management more, right? Because it has more to do with people, process, and lesser to do with IT. Then the second perspective which we are talking about is people perspective, right? So what people perspective says is, people perspective supports development of an organization-wide change management strategy for successful cloud adoption. Right, a lot of heavy words in this sentence, right? So we'll just break it down and try to understand it, right? So what it's saying is, when an enterprise is adopting cloud, right? So from a people perspective, there are many things which can change. Okay, so for example, one common role, or if you look at the common roles, then it will become very clear. So human resources, right? So the way human resources are working, right, the kind of people they are hiring, right, that can change, right? How you are staffing people, what kind of people you have, the people managers, right, what they are focusing upon, right? So those ideas, those thoughts, or the type of people you are hiring definitely will change, right, when it comes to cloud, right? So we need to focus upon this area, so that the migration strategy what we are creating gets executed smoothly, right? The third perspective is governance perspective, right? So again, from a governance perspective, many things will change, right? So why things are changing? Because we are moving from on premise, let's say, to cloud, right? And definitely there is a difference, a lot of difference in the way we are doing, right? So for example, the example which we were taking, right? So initial days, older days, when we are still on inside our data center, and we have to order a procure a server, there is a specific process, right, which we have to follow. That process will change because there is no need of such an elaborate process, right? In that process there are different departments, procurement department, some approvals, vendors. We have to raise a request, we have to create a purchase order, right? So there is a very elaborate process, there is a different types of people involved, there is a specific thought process, right? So when we spoke about the last perspective, people perspective, right? So all this has to do with people, their mindset has to change, right? Because technically we have adopted to cloud, but these non-technical people who were responsible for approving the budgets, right, or who were responsible for uh, doing vendor research, right? So you have to get a physical server, you are doing some analysis, or you are evaluating different vendors. All the thought process, all the strategy has to change, right? Because we have migrated to cloud, it's a very different world altogether, right? The pricing model is very different, right? So initially when it went to business approvals, they used to see that, okay, you have to get a physical server, it is going to cost you $500. Okay, then the shipping charges and this charge and that charges, then they will negotiate. Now it's very different, the model itself is completely changed, right? So the person who were responsible for approving, right, those were like the financial people, right, finance teams or the procurement teams, they have to change. Either they change as in they hire new people, or their mindset has to change, right? So that was the people perspective, right? Now we are talking about governance perspective, right? So governance also changes, right? We talked about so many different AWS services, right, which are there for governance, right? We spoke about AWS Shield, spoke about AWS organizations, right? So all these how you were governing your IT, right? So the how part completely changes, right? So which type of people change? CIOs, right? CTOs, right? Enterprise architects, right? So they all have to start thinking and working in a different way, right? So this is the third perspective, right? Then we come more towards technology perspective, right? Platform perspective, right? So platform perspective, so initially the solutions or the design or the architecture which you were creating, right, for designing new solutions, the complete thought process now has to change, right? Because you have shifted to cloud. On cloud, you have different new services which can give you different advantages, right? So IT managers, solution architects, CTOs, right? They have to start thinking differently, right? To achieve the same thing, but they have to start thinking in a different way. Okay, then we have operations perspective, right? Sorry, security perspective. So yes, of course, the security tools and everything will change with cloud, right? And then we have the operations perspective, right? So again, how you're operating, how you're making changes to different servers, how you're patching different servers, installing different operating systems and everything, right? How you're monitoring, everything changes, right? So IT operations manager, support engineers, all those things, the mindset, everything changes, right? So this covers the cloud adoption framework model, which talks about how in which areas you need to focus so as to have a successful migration implementation. Now we'll just very quickly touch upon the different migration strategies. It is very simple. These are 6 R's. So first is rehosting. So in rehosting, what we do is it is also known as lift and shift. So when we are migrating to cloud, we just take an application and we rehost it on cloud. Okay. Second migration strategy is replatforming. So we take an application, we go to cloud, and we do a small modification, right? So instead of using database which we were hosting on our own, we start using RDS, right? So it's another strategy. Third strategy is refactoring or re-architecting, right? We re-architect the whole application completely, right? So again, it's one of the strategy. Repurchase, right? So we repurchase some of the services, right? So on cloud we have an email service available, right? So instead of using our own email service, we purchase that service, right? Another strategy is retaining. So even if you are migrating to cloud, we want to retain some of the applications on our premise, right? And the final strategy is retiring, right? So when we are migrating, we may see that there are some applications which are of no use, so we stop using those applications, right? So these are the 6 different strategies which can be very handy when you are looking at each application while you are migrating to cloud, right? While you are migrating to cloud, definitely there is great amount of need of migrating data, right? It could be petabyte or zettabytes of data which you have to migrate. So these are the different options which are available. Snowball, Snowcone, and Snowmobile. These are actually physical devices which you can order from AWS, and you can copy the data, and then data goes into your specific region and copies the data over there, right? So again, this option is also available for migration. Okay, so we have ended the module. These are the additional resources which you can go through once after this sessions are over. Okay, so now the last module, the cloud journey, we will be quickly touching upon the very important, the last concepts which we are talking about today is the AWS well architected framework. Okay, so AWS well architected framework is a series of PDFs. It's a series of white papers which have been published by AWS architects. These are very important, okay, for you to understand. What they talk about is they talk about 5 different pillars. Okay, so these are the pillars which they say that if you take care of these pillars, then we can say that whatever architecture you have created on AWS is it's very good. So first is operational excellence, right? So from an operation excellence means is the ability to run and monitor systems, right? So what kind of services, what kind of processes you have created using AWS services to have operational excellence, right? So the keywords over here are ability to run and monitor the systems, right? Second pillar is security, right? Of course, we have spent good amount of time in understanding security, right? So what is your ability to protect your information systems? Okay, what are your assets, right? So what are you doing, what kind of services you are using, how you're configuring those services? Okay, so this is the second important pillar. Third important pillar is reliability, right? So reliability is, right, whenever there is any service disruption happening, so how you are able to quickly recover from that disruption, right? Not only recover, how can you mitigate, right? So how can you create your design, your architecture in such a way that such disruptions don't happen, right? And then the fourth one is performance efficiency. Of course, performance is the key thing nowadays. So how are you designing, how are you best utilizing AWS resources so that you efficiently meet system requirements and you maintain, you also have efficiency as demand changes and technologies evolve, right? So from that perspective, and last but not the least, cost. We have also spent good amount of time on cost optimization. So are you aware about different options, right? The different tiers which we spoke about, the savings plans, right? How can you make use of them and reduce your cost, right? So these are the 5 different pillars which AWS well architected framework talks about. And one should I would definitely encourage you. It's not very technical, it's general guidance, some ideas, some use cases which which will help you to be more confident about when it comes to designing systems on AWS, right? So in additional resources, we have shared the links of all these things, all these white papers, right? Okay, so I think that's the end of module number 10. Priyadarshan, I will hand it over to you.
Thank
Hello.
you very much, Ankit. It was definitely a
Able to
great
hear me?
session. Yep. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So, practice makes perfect. AWS is something you have definitely. We try to cover many services here. You need to go through that. Once we share the slide, there are additional links. Then you can go through and start reading on it. And as I said, practice makes perfect. We are going to share 400 questions and answer to you so that you can keep practicing and get ready for the exam. So next slide, please, Ankit. Next slide, please, Ankit. Probably not able to hear me. Let me give a quick thing. Yeah. So how this exam works, you have to file the cost of the exam is $100. There will be 65 questions for 90 minutes. You will get in 90 minutes, you have to appear for 65 questions and answers. Most of the questions will be multiple choice, and some of them would be like, a multiple answer, right? So, and once you start, register for the exam. Well, I will share the link in the PDF that is there already. I think someone shared that. In the PDF, you'll find that once I share. So register there, and you can take the exam whenever you are ready at your convenience. From home also now they are home proctored exam they are conducting. The AWS is conducting, so you can register and fix your time, get ready for 90 minutes and attend the exam. So the exam, the total scoring is 1,000, and that is based on, we actually not sure how they calculate. It is what they say is about, based on total practice and different concepts designed by them. So the calculate is 1,000 marks, and the passing score is 700, right? So it's almost 70% you have to get. So the question and answer we will share. There is only for a casual option we have given 2 points to each question. The pointings, the marking system, that is not valid there actually. What you need to focus is the answers and the questions. Next, please, Ankit. So there are 3 strategies you have to follow. First, read the question completely, attentively. Predict the answer before actually see the options. Just as you have already prepared, you definitely there will be some answer coming to your mind. Fix that. Eliminate incorrect responses options, and then you click on the right answer. Right. So based on this, you can try the exam to ensure you qualify for it. You easily qualify it. I'm sure after going through all 400 questions, definitely many of them will be you'll find similar, and while practicing you will come to know few more answers or concepts that will also help you to clear the exam easily. Yeah, next please, sir. So here is the registration link, right? Just previous one. Here is the registration link to register your exam when you are ready. So that's all from our side, guys. Thank you very much, and congratulations to complete the course. Yes, we will not give you this is a official curriculum, so we will not, and we are just try to make sure you get practice, additional effort we have given. So that's why we have came to you and presented all the content to you. So congratulations to everyone, and hopefully, and as we are getting connected in the WhatsApp, so we will try a couple of more quick sessions, like 1 hour or 2 hour sessions, so that we can address your questions, your doubts, and anything that you need help from us. So that's the plan in the future. Okay, so thank you very much. That's all from our end today. So we are available for 10 minutes to take your question and answer. Good luck to everyone for the exam. Thank you, and thanks again. Thanks for your patience, for listening to us today. We will catch up soon again.